So I want you to think about when you're taking the limit towards infinity, that you're also looking at the graph. So if I was to draw the graph of y equal x cubed and think about as x's are going to infinity, you can see that the y's are going to infinity. And then another thing I just want you to think of is that means infinity cubed is infinity. Let's do the same with y equal x squared. Graph looks like that. X is going to infinity, y's are going to infinity. So that also implies that infinity squared is infinity. Root x, you know what that graph looks like. As x's are going to infinity, the y values, they are slowly getting up to infinity. So that means square root of infinity is infinity. I want you to think of the graph of y equal 1 over x. So as x's are going to infinity, the y values are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They're getting close to 0. So that means 1 over infinity is 0. You think of the very small fraction. As x's are going to negative infinity, the y values are also going to 0. And so it doesn't matter that if it's a negative infinity, I also get 0. Let's think. So I want you to know that these things here, I want you to think about, but you're not going to write because you're not going to do arithmetic with infinity because it's not a number. All right, so here we have e to the x, looks like that. As x's are going to infinity, the y values are going to infinity. So that means e to the infinity is infinity. And then if I have this, e to the negative x, you know the graph is coming down. As x's are going to infinity, the y values are getting increasingly small. It's going to 0. So e to the negative infinity is the same as saying 1 over e to the infinity. 1 over infinity, that's 0. ln of x, you know that looks like this. As x's are going to infinity, the y values do keep growing and go to infinity. So that means ln of infinity is infinity. So let's look at the graph of sine of x. Sine of x looks like this, goes forever. As x's are going to infinity, the y values, they are not approaching any one y value, so we say that this limit does not exist. Same with cosine. Goes between 1 and negative 1, but does not reach one y value, so this does not exist. So we've already seen a little bit of this. 1 over infinity is 0. So let's just play with these with positive and negative infinity. So again, you're not going to write this. You're only thinking that. So this is saying negative 5 over infinity squared, which is negative 5 over infinity. And so that's going to be 0. This is negative 5, and I put in a negative infinity. So I have negative 5 over negative infinity. So that's 5 over infinity. That's 0. If I have infinity to the 4th power, that's infinity. 4 over infinity, 0. Got to be careful with these negatives, so thinking about it. So put in the negative, cube the negative infinity. So that's a negative infinity. So I would end up getting positive 4 over infinity, still 0. Square root of infinity, you know, is infinity. So 4 over 3 times infinity is 4 over infinity. That's 0. Here I'm going to take the 2/3 power. So you know that 2 squares it and then takes the cube root. That's going to still be infinity. 3 over infinity, that's 0. Okay, so when we get infinity over infinity, that's more work. So if we can cancel, we do. We need to, because infinity over infinity is not anything. So if I take and cancel here, I get negative 5 over x squared, and that gives me 0. Let's play with the negative infinity. I have canceling here, I get negative 5x. So if I substitute negative infinity, I get the negatives canceling. So I have 5 times infinity. That's infinity. Limit as x goes to infinity. Canceling here, I get negative 4x squared. So plug in infinity, it's infinity. Negative 4 times infinity is negative infinity for an answer. This one here, limit as x goes to negative infinity. Cancel, I get 4x. Plug in a negative infinity. 4 times negative infinity, negative infinity. And then here you know that e to the 4x is the same thing as saying e to the 3x times e to the x. So one of these e to the x's cancels. And so I would get 4 over e to the 3x, put it in infinity, e to the infinity is infinity. 4 over infinity gives me 0. Okay, this is when the canceling was nice and easy.